Welcome to Innovate presents Entrepreneurs in Tech. Today we're delighted to have our guest, Anthony Rose, who is the founder and CEO of SeedLegals. Anthony, pleasure to have you on the show, and thank you for joining us. Can you start by introducing yourself and provide us a little bit of some insights and a bit of background before we dive into it?
All right, so hello, I'm Anthony Rose. I'm founder and CEO at SeedLegals. SeedLegals is a legal tech platform. If you're a startup founder, do not go to a law firm. There's now a much better way of doing that. So helping you get investment ready and all the legals for your funding round. We're a 160-person company based in the UK, but now launched in the US. And I go every 2 weeks between London and New York. So my background, I'm a serial entrepreneur. Years ago, I used to head up BBC iPlayer. That's the BBC's version of Netflix or Hulu. Led a team of a few hundred people. Time to get back to startup roots. I left the BBC, built a startup, sold it, built another startup, sold it, invested in a few, got tired of paying lawyers, and created with my co-founder SeedLegals. And around half of all UK startups, like 50,000 UK startups, are on SeedLegals. And I'm now here in New York to see if I can change US fundraising forever. We'll see how that goes.
Well, this is pretty amazing. I actually like the idea. So you help startup companies from when they want to raise money, or as an idea, or somebody already built the technology or started whatever idea they have, and you come in and say, okay, we'll help you to get funding to kind of go to your next step. Or somebody could come in from the base like, hey, I have an idea, I have the skills, but I don't have the funds to build it, but I have the skill and the knowledge and the experience to run it.
Okay, great point. So as a business and a platform, we do all the legals. So you get on the platform and you go, I've got an investor, these are the deal terms, we create all the documents and the cap table and so on, which is fantastic and necessary. But actually what I've realized over the years is, and I joke with my team, that we like to think, what would a law firm do? And then do everything completely differently. So a lawyer will give you all the legal deal docs. But what we've realized is founders are really looking for, how do I find investors? It's great. I can only do the funding round when I found investors. And why aren't they replying to my calls? And why is my pitch deck not resonating? Now, that's not our bread and butter business, but I'd love to talk to founders individually, but I can't talk to everyone. So to scale, I do webinars, I do videos, do podcasts, do lots of content. So when you get on SeedLegals, we're also a whole lot of resources to help with all the things that you really need. Maybe the things you didn't think you really needed, but actually is the thing you need before you get go. So for example, one thing I see as a repeat founder, founders think the biggest problem they're going to have is building something. And then they wake up in a cold sweat a year or two later, realizing they've gotten investors to give them money, they've given up their day job, they've got team members to give up their day jobs, and they've built all the stuff, and nobody wants it. And that's the nightmare for a founder. And if only you had really validated it beforehand. So a lot of the talks and presentations I do is about validating what you do before you build it, because realistically, it's hardly ever the case. You launch and millions of people come to your door. No, months later, you're now trying to work out how to find customers and wishing that what you'd built, maybe you'd built something else, because actually you've now realized it's not quite matching what people want.
So you don't just help people get funding and get on their feet and kind of introduce them into the right situation or right investors, and put in the proper handshakes with the right way. You also kind of tell them if their innovation or invention or idea, if it's something sustainable and it's fulfilling a need or fulfilling a challenge out there, and so forth.
Yeah, but of course, that as a funding advisor, someone would charge thousands for. My model is I charge for all the legal documents, and the rest try and help companies get there, both as a business and personally sharing my experiences to create video content and so on. So I can spread those experiences, but in a more scalable way.
Yeah, I mean, I know I come across a lot of independent, or I should say, startups, and a lot of some of the major obstacles that a lot of the founders have, which the right hands to shake. I don't know. How can I put a filter system between who's right and who's wrong, or who's legit or who's not? And everybody wants to charge a fee. And I mean, a company like yours with 50,000 startups in the UK alone, that's pretty impressive, really impressive. 160 employees. Plus, now you have a branch in New York and you're running both operations. And there's so many startups, I mean, in the world, not just in the UK and the US and North America. Forget it, you got Canada, you got Latin America, the whole world full of startups, and a lot of great startups, a lot of great inventions that get lost and swept under the rug because they don't have the proper help. And
Exactly.
yeah,
And
yes,
my goal is really,
and the guidance.
and personally, my goal is to help democratize fundraising. So it's not just the university elites who can find, the VCs in the Bay Area and raise astronomical amounts. It can open entrepreneurship to everyone. And the founders I delight most helping are people who are making, baked goods, or pizza, or recycled clothing, or whatever it is, who otherwise would have struggled to raise money or borrow money from a bank or to raise investment because they weren't those fintech gurus. And to help those be able to raise principally from angel investors is something that I really love helping with.
So, Anthony, so if I may say that Seed Legal, it doesn't just focus on tech startups. It focuses on all type of startups in all type of fields.
Exactly. And when we started, by the way, I was wondering, would it be only like fintech gurus who would use like a legal tech platform? But it's turned out it's become the go-to for people who don't know about startup fundraising. And one of my favorite customers is, and a great example is Sophia from Sourdough Sophia Bakery in London. And I noticed Sophia on our platform raising with safes. And she made quite a few of them, like 100. And at some point I thought, I'm going to have to call her and introduce myself. Like, hey, I'm the founder and the CEO. I think you're loving our platform. Can I help with anything? And I'm convinced that everyone who came into her bakery, I mean, she was raising investment to make more bakeries, that everyone who came in, she said, would you like a baguette, a sourdough, and a safe? And so, she was probably the profile of bakery that a VC was not going to invest in. Bakeries are not going to become unicorns. They're not a SaaS platform with AI. No, they make croissants, but it's a great business. And so she's reached out to angel investors, and she would never really have been able to afford the legals or understand the legal proposition, but thanks to our platform, I think literally like 1 hour she might make another safe. It's fantastic to see. So yeah.
Amazing. I mean, I'm sure you have a lot of stories to share with us and inspire others. Despite what's happening in the world, I think you are one of the main contributors to bring in positivity and saying, "Hey, the world's still a great place to be in." Yes, and there's more, and there's a lot of positive things that we can bring into humanity and add to humanity. Give us some of the stories, please. I'm sure there's really very intriguing and interesting stories and inspiring, especially for our listeners who are starting entrepreneurs. Some of the people that come into your platforms and you interacted with similar stories like with Sophia, the bakery young lady who has a bakery shop.
So one of the nice things about the startup world is that it's filled. All the people I talk to on a given day are startup founders, smart people building some vision of the future. And my goal is to help them get there faster and without making the mistakes that others have made. So, it's all a world of optimism and enthusiasm and building a better future. Of course, things don't always work out. You can't find investors, the team has a dispute, you have a founder fallout. And so my goal is to have the legal documents that help when things are going well and also when things are not going well. So, in terms of examples, there are like so many. One of the ones I love actually is a company called Seafield. They were winner of our Eco Startup of the Year at our SeedLegals Awards last year. And what they do is they grow massive sargassum seaweed fields in the ocean of seaweed which absorb carbon from the atmosphere, and then it sinks to the bottom of the ocean, removing carbon from the atmosphere. But as part of growing these, they don't sink them all. They can actually now extract oil and other things from it. So it actually creates a range of products in addition to carbon sequestration, as they say. So, and it's in the warm waters, often around America, that they grow this. And I love that kind of business because, you know, you meet so much innovation from a bakery one day to growing seaweed to extract carbon, you know, and that's the joy of the space and the joy often of being a startup founder is you can pick something and then hopefully if you can create a winning pitch, sell the vision and get people to invest and get a team together, then you know, sometimes you want to change the world and sometimes you just want to make a great sustainable business.
You know, SeedLegal, you're gonna really help a lot of startup companies and keep them in business and give them hope, because you're pretty much really the guiding father in a way. It's like, okay, I'll tell you what to do. Come in. Here's the steps that you need to do. First, the legal, because a lot of the dilemma, even a lot of the startup companies or the startup founders come across. There's so many steps, and every step is an expense. And in order to attract investors, you need to have all of these things set up separately. The legal, the paperwork, so many things even. Building the platform, having enough money, not having enough money, so many things. But all combined at one platform, creating an ecosystem for startups and startup founders, that's pretty much a gift, actually. Really a gift.
And that's great to hear. And by the way, one of the things, many things I've learned on my journey over the years at SeedLegals is that, you know, every idea for a startup is different, or often many of those are the same, but the startup journey is very self-similar. A couple of founders get together. Statistically, it's two. It could be one, or it could be three. You know, usually you've got a day job. You've had an idea. At some point, you need to decide, should I give up my day job or not? Then you're going to raise, you know, $50,000 from friends and family when you can't afford to fund it yourself, and that's going to get you a prototype. And then you're going to raise a few $100,000 or maybe $1 million from angel investors in a seed or pre-seed round, and that's going to help you build a small team. So basically, at each stage, you think you're alone in solving these problems. But actually, it's remarkably self-similar. And my goal at SeedLegals is to actually, you don't have to overthink this. I mean, others have done it before. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to productize it to show you that these are the steps. And, you know, at school, you could skip a class and jump to the next class. You might say, I'm not going to raise friends and family going straight here. I've got an AI company, I can go further. But realistically, statistically, it's going to be very similar. And if you can productize it, you make it way easier for everyone.
Anthony, is it possible to take us through the steps? How would somebody, as a startup founder, one or two, as you said, you know, a bit lost, definitely have the drive and the hunger and have the idea, or they started the corporation already or the company, and they have all the basics to take them to the next level, but they don't know what direction, and they come in, they hear of your platform, you know, SeedLegals, like, okay, wow, this is great, let's join. What is the steps and some of the basic costs they could occur, so this way to let everybody know about SeedLegal and the process here in America, so we can grow this to another 100,000 users.
Amazing. Okay, so, you know, if you're a founder watching this, depending on what stage you're at, but let's go right back to the beginning. Maybe you're at uni or you've got a day job and you have an idea and you need to figure out, is this idea good enough to give up my day job and put the next, you know, several years of my life into, or should I go, great thought experiment, leave it? So the biggest thing is to validate it. And here you should go get a book on Amazon called The Mom Test. And the idea is it's called the mom test because people often ask their mother, hey, I've got this amazing AI, GPS, blockchain-enabled bicycle lock. Isn't it a great idea? And your mom goes, I have no idea what you're talking about, but my son's such a clever boy. Of course it's a good idea. So you've asked the wrong person the wrong question, got the wrong answer, and you then go and do it. So you want to ask people, how much have you paid for one of these things? Have you looked for one of these things? So the first thing is validation. Then the next thing is an investor's unlikely to give you money just on a PowerPoint. So you have to build something. And that used to be really hard. But now you can make mock-ups with Figma and with Canva, or even better, you can get on Lovable and you can make a working prototype. You're probably going to have to throw it away later, but you can make a prototype. So the more that you've got to show, the higher your company valuation. Now, you might think, I can borrow money from the bank, but that's not going to work because the bank's never going to lend you money if you don't have revenue. And you can't repay the bank, so you're going to go bankrupt. So investment is the way to go. So now you need to get investment. So you, at some point, want to register a corporation. A Delaware C Corp is the way to go. Some people thinking Texas, somewhere elsewhere, Wyoming. Actually, whenever I talk to lawyers or investors, they just go, if it's a Delaware C Corp, no friction. Everywhere else, it's complicated. So make a Delaware C Corp. And you can do that for like $500 these days. And now you're going to go out and start, you want to find investors. Of course, the investors are going to look for some pitch decks. You have to create a pitch. And most people make a big mistake in their pitches by essentially trying to prove how clever they are by describing what they do, but nobody cares what you do. They only want a solution to a problem they've got. And I realized this with SeedLegals, where the first version of our website said, we do document automation and content generation. And then I realized there are like 0 people in the world who wake up in the morning going, what I need is document automation. So I completely changed it to, the fastest way to close your next funding round. Here's how to give options to your team members. Here's how to get money back from the government with R&D tax credits and so on. And then it met with the goal of somebody coming to the website. So you're going to redo your pitch deck and create a pitch deck that tells a story, like a Netflix drama. The goal of episode 1 is to get you to watch episode 2. So you're going to start by describing something is broken. It's insane. We fix that. Dialysis machines are broken. Diabetes, whatever it is broken. Baked goods are awful. We're going to fix that. And then you proceed to show how you're fixing it, and then you create the deck. And we've got a whole lot of content. So you'd get on SeedLegals and look at our resources on creating the art of storytelling for a pitch deck. And then the next thing is you now need to go find some investors. And the problem is everyone knows I don't know any investors, but I do see Google searches for VCs, and there are tons of articles on like the top 10 VCs in New York or the Bay Area. And so people begin writing to VCs, and only then do they realize the unfortunate secret, which is VCs only invest, with rare exception, once you've got revenue. And so the story of your life is, if you do get a call or an intro to a VC, love what you're doing, come back later. So actually, you should be finding angel investors. And so you can see we're going through a formula here. And so initially you might be looking to raise $500,000. So that could be 20 angel investors at $25K each. And you're probably going to raise with safes on that. So you're going to have to agree a cap. Of course, you want your cap table set up. And that's where SeedLegals comes in to help. And also, there are articles and videos on how to find investors, how to do LinkedIn outreach, and how to engage. And of course, when investors then talk to you, you want to come across as confident and knowledgeable. And if they ask about QSBS, for example, it's surprising how few people know about QSBS. QSBS is your friend. It stands for Qualified Small Business Stock. So it's a US government taxpayer incentive that if you're an investor or a founder and you keep your stock, your shares, for more than 5 years, then you pay no federal capital gains tax up to $10 million will you sell your shares. So if you know about this, you can tell your investors, hey, if you invest in my company, keep your stock for 5 years, you pay no federal capital gains tax up to $10 million. And the big, beautiful bill has just changed that so that you actually only need to wait 3 years and to get up to $5 million or 50%. So the other thing is there's another loss relief. So if your investor's worried, what if your company goes bang? There's something called the very boring Section 1244 loss relief that says you can deduct up to $50,000 a year from your income tax if your investment goes to zero. So now, once the founder understands this formula, hopefully they're more confident, they've got a great slide deck, they know where to find investors, and then we're here to help on the steps after that. So that was like the founder journey in 4 minutes.
What an amazing process. Very insightful. Anthony, what is some of the common obstacles that a lot of founders find themselves in, but these obstacles turn to mistakes and it costs them to stop their journey, their idea, the loss of their business at a short period of time?
Great point. So I think the biggest thing that goes wrong in early stage startups, I think founders are obsessed that investors are going to fire them. They've seen too many movies, they've seen the Sam Altman thing, but it turns out that's not very often the case. Much more likely is founder disputes and founder fallouts. And so when you have a co-founder, most startups have got 2, sometimes 3 founders, and all the founders are given their stock up front. So you incorporate the company, maybe each founder's got 5 million shares, and then a year later, there's a fallout. And if you haven't created share vesting, reverse vesting, that says if you leave, you have to give back some of your shares, it's basically a disaster, because you then have a departed founder owning some of the stock in the company. Nobody's going to invest in the company. The departed founder says, it's still my idea, and it's a mess. So what you want to do is you want to have the legal agreements, IP assignment, confidentiality, and founder agreement. And that's the number one thing that founders aren't aware of. So I think the next thing, and it's a nice problem to have, is founders trying to raise a too high a valuation. So people read TechCrunch and they read about AI startups raising zillions, and you're talking to someone, in a coffee shop, and it's early stage founder. They've got some idea of a delivery company, and they tell you they're going to raise $5 million. Just like that. Now, the problem is when you fundraise, one of the things you'll learn on SeedLegals is you normally give away about 15% equity in a funding round, so that after 3 funding rounds, you still, as founders, have more than 50% equity. So that means you take the amount that you want to raise and multiply it by 5 to get the valuation. So that means if you're raising $5 million, you're probably talking about a 25 million valuation. So there you've got some kids going, we're raising at a 25 million valuation. And an investor's going to go, great, guys, what have you built? Like, are you doing $1 million a year in revenue, doing 5 million a year in revenue? It's like, no revenue yet. Well, have you got customers? Have you got users? Like, no, it's prototype. And then it's the story of your life, which is come back later. You're not going to raise that amount at that valuation. And so I think a key...
Or here's 50,000 and give me 50% of your company.
Well, that's the other thing, right? Which is then you're dead in the water.
Yeah.
So to find the right rate at which you fundraise, and too often I think founders are seduced by raising a very large amount and then spend for ages kissing frogs, so to speak, to find that, investor that will buy into their vision. But they may be much better off raising smaller amounts sooner so that you can start building traction and start hiring people and building it, rather than waiting forever on your own dime as your life goes by, waiting for that magical investor to come along and save you.
Very, I would say, not just insightful, but actually very important for a lot of founders or early stage founders to learn these tips and to learn from all of that. What is some of the advices I would say you would give founders? We talked about the challenges, the journey on your platform, and the challenges on the fallout between founders and all of that. What are some of the advices that you'd give any founder with an established idea or with a brand new ideas? Obviously, yes, we want him to come to SeedLegal, log into SeedLegal, come in, create an account, and just go through the process. If I was a founder, I'll do it. I will actually do it.
So a great point. Well, the very first thing is are you cut out to be a founder. So there was a survey recently, it said like 27% of people who leave school want to be founders. But
Correct.
2 decades or 3 decades ago, that number was like 2%. So everyone wants to be a founder, which is great. I mean, it democratizes the fact that you can build something yourself, and maybe AI makes it even easier now. But the problem is, you may not be the right mindset. And so founders, one of the key things is you have to make decisions and you have to take risks. If you are risk averse and you hate making decisions, you should just get a job at a large company, because this founder life ain't for you. So, the fact that I'm happily living in the UK, but I got my butt on a plane, went to the US, went to set up a company here, or, the US version here, because of the bet on a future, when I could have not made the bet. No bets are without risk. So, and likewise, to start the company in the first place. So if you are prepared to do that, that's great. And if you're not, and you don't like risk, don't be a founder. The other thing is, I think the thing to bear in mind, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So founders think, great, I'll build something and exit in like a year. But the median time to an exit for someone to buy your business is around 7 years. And it's said it's even getting longer to more like 10 years these days. So during that time, you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders. People have followed you to join this company. Investors have given you money. And I don't have kids, but I think it's maybe like having a kid. And like when they're 2 years old, you go, I'm bored. Can I give it back again? You can't. You made it. You got to own it. And so you should think about how you're going to pace yourself and reinvent yourself. Because when you're a founder at a 5-person company, you're hands in, you're doing everything yourself. But when it gets to 50 people, you start needing your first layer of next management, or maybe at 30 people. And when you're 200 people, then you need to have reinvented yourself again. So it's all about reinventing yourself as well, so you're relevant and a great leader, or great product person, or great coder, depending on the stage of your business. And if you can't reinvent yourself, you're probably sentenced to do small startups forevermore rather than growing into something larger.
The startup journey that never ends. Unbelievable.
Exactly.
Really amazing. And tell us about the New York branch that you just opened, and how people, is it the same platform, or is it different NYC, or is it just the same platform, just another branch in New York with an existing office and a staff, and to attract more of the local scene of startups in New York and other parts of the States?
Right. So this was, by the way, a really great, interesting point for me, which is we've been very successful in the UK with a particular formula. Would it be the same in the US? Now, the legal documents are different, and obviously everything's in dollars, not pounds, and so on. But it turns out the concept is the same. You've got early stage founders struggling to find investors, struggling to build a product, trying to get users getting their product, and needing to fundraise as part of it, and going to angel investors. So the proposition turns out to be exactly the same. The legal documents are different. There are different competitors in different countries, and also after many years in the UK, most startups know us. Most founders know me, whereas in New York, nobody knows us and nobody knows me. So it's interesting. It's like going back in time, like 7 years for me, and like almost starting the company again, but knowing there's the mothership back home with all the support. So we have an office down in the financial district near Wall Street in New York, a small team here in New York, mostly marketing and sales and events. New York's got a great event scene. We love being part of the event scene. But the tech development and so on is in the UK. New York salaries are way higher than London, so not looking to change that.
I mean, you need to probably have your own seed legal mixers, these event, gathering event.
We exactly do that. And in fact, the second person we hired was somebody to do mixer events. So, yes. Amazing. Well, I really enjoyed having you on the show. Before we say goodbye, with somebody who really lived the startup world, and very important in the startup world, because
there's so many challenges and so many obstacles and so many wrinkles that they want to iron when it comes to startups. And there's always new challenges every day. As you know, the startup world, it flipped the script now. Back in the day, people want to go to school and climb up the corporate ladder were 98%. Well, let's say 95%. 5% wanted to be the entrepreneurs, the risk takers, the independent. People say, I'm willing to risk it all. I don't care. Now it's the other way around. 5% want to say, I want to go to school, climb up the corporate ladder, and do all of that. And 95% say, I'm willing to drop out of school. I have some ideas, me and my buddies, even from all over the world, not just in the States or in the UK or in Dubai, in Europe, all Europe, in France, and anywhere. Everybody I speak to, whether they're in Asia or in the Middle East or in Latin America. It's just the numbers unbelievable. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Is there a downfall to that? Is there kind of how should I say a short-lived excitement and enthusiasm that kind of just because based on the hype or social pressure or the hype around that you excited? Oh, I want to be an entrepreneur. I can have a great idea, and that short-lived, and then it's like, oh, what to do? Because I would just say. Social media, the news, the money around being thrown, so especially on social media, when you hear somebody, oh, I just sold my company, I just exited for $100 million or $50 million or $1 billion or $2 billion. And you're talking about young people. People are from the age of 20 to 35, 40 and enjoying this luxury, lush lifestyle with the yachts and the private jet and all of these things. So sure, everybody's eyes goes crazy.
So the challenge is there aren't that many of those exits. The world can probably only support so many startups. I'm delighted that, once upon a time, coming from the UK, if your father worked on the farm or made hats or something, you were going to make hats. You were sentenced to the same life as your parents and your parents' parents. And now, thanks to, democracy and technology, you've got way more optionality, and thanks to readily available fundraising amounts and AI now as well for creating prototypes, it's become easier to build things, but that means more competition for other people building things for the people you're trying to reach and to sell to. So I think the focus needs to be on a cut-through proposition, something that's, cleverly marketed with a bit of a shtick, that taps into a pain point that people have, and then with the speed of execution that lets you out-deliver, other competitors in the space. But trying to differentiate from the increasing amount of noise, I think, is going to be the hardest thing going forward. I mean, if you look, there's an AI of everything. I mean, if there are 27 companies that I see doing AI for one market niche, I mean, how many can that niche support? And there, I think, is the problem.
Interesting. I probably could do another hour and extend this discussion and this interview. Really interesting and very intriguing, because there's so much about the I would say about entrepreneurship, but also about the startup world, and everything is a startup these days. We could talk about and discuss and bring in so many interesting challenges and points and solutions. Well, you know what? I'm going to leave it up to the audience and to a lot of the startups out there, entrepreneurs, especially in the States. And if they want to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you? How can they go to SeedLegal? Give us all that information. So we'll save them the time. They're going to enjoy this episode, but they want to know more. Let them go to your platform, SeedLegal. Please tell us how to get a hold of you on the platform.
All right, thank you. So you can find me, Anthony Rose, on LinkedIn, anthony@seedlegals.com if you want to drop me an email, or just seedlegals.com if you'd like to find out more on the platform. If you hit the chat bubble, you can book a demo or talk to one of my team, and we're here to help with your fundraising journey so you can focus on changing the world, and we help you get there faster.
What an amazing advice. Great. SeedLegal, don't forget that, guys. Again, Anthony, it was a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for taking the time and wishing you first we want to welcome you to the States and bringing such a positive spin on what you've done here to the States, which we needed, and wishing you the best of luck.
Thank you so much, Bob. Thanks for having me on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share. Innovate presents Entrepreneurs in Tech podcast. And if you're joining us on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.